Hello everyone, this is Alex from Bad Decks Play Badly, and I'm going to show off this week's deck tech. I'm going to be playing Izzet Clues. It's an interesting archetype and I've been wanting to play around it for a while, and I'll basically get straight into it. If you do like the video, please like, please subscribe, please comment if there are any other decks that you would like to see, and I will see if I can cater for you. Alright, I'll get straight into it, won't waste any time. The entire deck is built around Mechanized Production. So I enchant an artifact I control, and at the beginning of my upkeep I create a token that's a copy of the enchanted artifact. Then if you control 8 or more artifacts with the same name as one another, you win the game. So the artifact I've chosen I want to be copying a lot of are clues and clue tokens, and the way I'm going to be generating these is using the card Trail of Evidence. I have 4 of these in the deck, and whenever I cast an instant or a sorcery, I investigate, which is create a colourless clue token artifact, and I can pay 2 to sacrifice the artifact and draw a card. So the best deck that you can build around with Trail of Evidence and Mechanized Production is a control deck, and I decided to make an Izzet control deck, so which is blue and red. So what spells and sorceries am I going to be using to make clues? I've got 4 ops. It's just scry 1 and then draw a card. At instant speed, it's very nice. I just want to keep churning through my deck, creating as many clues as possible. I've got 4 Serum Visions, which is draw a card and scry 2. Quite similar to Opt, but it is sorcery speed. I draw before and then I scry 2. But it plays the same role as Opt really, it's just not instant speed. I also have 1 copy of Faithless Looting. I could have had more, I guess, but I think I only needed 1 because I've got some Ops and Serum Visions. It's nice just to have 1 because the good thing is you can flash it back. I can draw 2 cards and then discard 2 cards. Very good in our deck. I don't really have any graveyard tech, so I didn't want to put too many in, so I don't want to put too many cards in our graveyard. Okay. I do have to keep us alive. I can't just draw cards continuously. So I've got 1 copy of Flame Slash. Just deals 4 damage to target creature. So if you've got a big creature, you can just get rid of it, which is very nice. I've got 4 copies of Lightning Bolt. Deal 3 damage to any target, so I can take out a creature or go face, depending on whereabouts in the game I am. It's a very nice card, and you'll see pretty much every modern red deck play it, because it's just very good. I've got 1 copy of Echoing Truth. It's good against planeswalkers, or maybe tokens, or any artifact or enchantments that we may not be able to get rid of just using damage. So it's a very nice card, and I didn't have it in when having a few practice goes with this deck, and I found out very quickly I needed at least 1 copy in, because some enchantments and some artifacts could just completely ruin our day. I've got 4 copies of Remand. It's just counter target spell. If that spell is countered this way, put it into owner's hand instead of into a graveyard. So it's just more of a tempo play, just they want to play on turn 2, I counter it, and I get to draw a card out of it, which is very important because I need to keep sifting through my deck to make sure I find my finishers. I've got 1 copy of Mission Briefing. It's kind of like my budget Snapcaster. It's actually better than Snapcaster in this, because I can survey 2, then choose an instant or sorcery card from my graveyard. I may cast that card this turn. If that card would be put into your graveyard this turn, exile it instead. So Snapcaster would allow me to replay a card from my graveyard, and I'd get 1 clue out of it if I've got Trail of Evidence on a battlefield. With Mission Briefing, I'll get 2 clues. It's just that simple. It's actually better in this matchup. I've got 1 copy of Roast for even bigger creatures I can't deal with. Deal 5 damage to target creature without flying, which is exactly what we need. Sometimes we do have big creatures and we don't really want to waste 2 bolts on 1 creature. We don't want to get 2 for 1. So it's good to have 1 copy of that. I've got 1 copy of Izzet Charm, which is very good in this deck because I can counter target non-creature spells unless its controller pays 2, which is good. I can deal 2 damage to a creature, so I can take out a creature I want to get rid of. And on top of that, I get to draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards depending which one I choose. So it's fantastic in this deck. It does everything we want it to do. I only have 1 in this deck because I think with a Mission Briefing, it's quite circumstantial sometimes. In late game, the counter is not very good, and especially late game, I may not have many cards in my hand, so it's a good card, but just a 1 will be fine. I've got 2 copies of Metallic Rebuke. This is great. Counter target spell unless its controller pays 3. but it has improvised, so I get to tap artifacts instead of land. So I can, if I've got a lot of clue tokens, this will only cost me 1 blue mana, which is pretty good. I've only got 2 copies in the deck. I did start off with 4, but I found that it's not very useful before I've used, I've played a Trail of Evidence, and I haven't got any clues. It's just a little bit slow down. So it's a bit better a little bit later on in the game, and it's very, very useful. As I said, I've got 4 copies of Trail of Evidence. It's just the backbone of the entire deck. Okay, and this is a great card. This is Ghirapur Aether Grid, or Aether Grid, and I get to tap 2 untapped artifacts I control, and I get to deal 1 damage to any target. So this is the kind of backup win condition. If I've got 10 clues on the battlefield, I can essentially deal 5 damage to anywhere I want, so creatures or to face, and it's very, very good. I've only got 1 copy in the deck, purely because if you have 2, it's just a wasted card in your hand. There's no need to have more than 1, and because I've got so many ways of sifting through my deck, chances I'll find it pretty much every game, depending how long the game goes. It's good at stalling out our opponent. Essentially, if we've got 10 clues down and we play this, and their board's empty, they just can't play creatures unless they have hexproof, because we can just deal with them as they come down every turn. I've got 3 copies of Sweltering Suns. It's kind of my budget it's Wrath of Gods, yeah. I don't actually own Wrath of Gods, so Sweltering Suns will have to do. It is the budget alternative, although I do like it because I get to cycle for free. So sometimes, especially in game 1, if you're playing a control deck, it's nice to be able to cycle it away and just keep drawing cards. Dealing 3 damage to each creature is perfect because we don't actually play any creatures in the main board, so we just need to keep creatures off the battlefield whilst we set up and do our thing, and it allows us to have a little bit of time. I've got 1 copy of Electrolyze. It deals 2 damage dividers as you choose among 1 or 2 targets. It's just good because you can get a 2 for 1 or even a 3 for 1, because I get to draw a card. If they have 2 small creatures with 1 toughness on the battlefield, I can get rid of 2 creatures and then draw a card. Does everything we want. We want to keep their creatures off the battlefield, and we want to keep drawing cards and sifting through them. Okay, as I stated before, we have the 1 copy of Mechanized Production. We don't need any more than that really, because we'll play it on. Once we have 7 clues down, we'll play it, and then our upkeep, we just win the game. So they have to have an answer that turn, else we just straight up win. And a lot of people just don't expect Mechanized Production in Modern, so we can have a lot of surprise wins. It's going to be good, I promise. We have sort of more higher end stuff. Aether Spouts. I really like this card, and no one plays it in Modern. It's essentially the blue Settled Wreckage. For each attacking creature its owner puts on top or bottom of their library. So this is a great card. If they attack with an entire board full of creatures, not only do you get rid of them off the battlefield this turn, they have to choose whether to put on top of their library or underneath. And if they've got a few cards they want to keep on top, it essentially puts them back their card draw. And it's just a great tempo play, and a lot of people just don't expect it. It's really, really good in control decks, and not enough people play it in my opinion. I've got 1 copy of Confirmed Suspicions. It's a pretty expensive counter at 5. However, I can counter a target spell and I get to investigate and create 3 clue tokens. This is really good. If we're stuck on 4 clues and we want to play in Mechanized Production, but we know we've got a few turns where it could just be destroyed, this is a good way of just getting more clues on the battlefield quick. If we've got a Trail of Evidence down, that's essentially 4 clues for 1 counter. It's perfect for what our deck does. There's only 1 copy, as it is expensive and it is more of a late game play, but when it is played, it will be very, very good. And then last off in the main deck, it's Hour of Devastation. There we go. It's essentially kind of our 4th copy of Sweltering Suns, but we just need something that can catch the bigger creatures really. So if they've got a board full of like 4 toughness creatures or 5 toughness creatures, Sweltering Suns won't be doing the job, and most file removal won't be doing the job very well. So it's good to have a fallback just to have 5 damage to everything, and it also deals with non-bolus planeswalkers. which is fantastic. So it's kind of a catch-all, and it's good to have one of in a deck because it can be very helpful in very certain circumstances. So that's our main deck. I will explain the lands actually. I've got one copy of Detection Tower. As you can tell with our deck, we have a lot of removal. You know, we can deal 3 damage, 4 damage, 5 damage to all these creatures. However, if they've got a Leyline of Sanctity down, or if they have, you know, any hexproof creatures, it's just nice to be able to remove hexproof from something so we can deal with it. It's very circumstantial, which is why there's only one copy of it, but it could ruin our opponent's day, especially if we've got a Ghirapur Aether Grid down, and we're at that point in the game where we want to start going to face and just dealing damage each turn to them. It's good just to be able to pay 1 mana and then just take away hexproof to get away around a leyline. I've got 2 copies of Fairy Conclave. It's just a creature land, pay 2, it becomes a 2/1 blue fairy creature with flying into end of turn, and it's still a land. It's kind of like backup. So if we've cleared the board, they're empty-handed, we've got none of our finishers down, we can start to smash and face with our fairies. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 islands, and 1, 2, 3, and 5 mountains. Self-explanatory, really. I've got 1 copy of Nivik's Area of the Firemind. I can add it, colourless mana with it, or I can pay 2, a blue and a red, and tap it, and exile the top card of my library until my next turn I may cast a card if it's an instant or sorcery. As you can tell, that's quite good on our deck because most of our deck is instant and sorcery. It's just a good way, if we're empty-handed, to just exile the top card of our library. If it's a land, fair enough, we've got a land out of the way. If not, we might get a bolt and be able to get a creature. It's just it's kind of a reserve card if everything goes wrong, but it's nice to have in a deck. It's also one of the main reasons I decided to play Izzet in the first place, actually. I just like the look of the land. It's quite fun. I've got 4 copies of Shivan Reef. These are the budget lands. If you've got the money or you have them, you know, please use shock lands or fetch lands. They will be better in this deck, but I just don't own them, especially the Izzet ones. They seem to be the most expensive out of all of them, and I just can't afford them. So I've got 4 copies of Shivan Reef, self-explanatory, and I've got 4 copies of Temple of Epiphany, which, like Shivan Reef, is just a budget dual land. I do like that I can scry though. Scry 1 in this deck is actually very good. It's just another way to keep sifting through our deck. Very nice land. I really do like the scry lands. Okay, let's go into our sideboard. We've got 2 copies of Alpine Moon. I don't own Blood Moon, but these are great against Tron. As it enters the battlefield, I may choose a non-basic land card name. Lands your opponent's control of the chosen name, lose all land types and abilities, and they gain add 1 mana of any colour. So it's just purely in there for Tron, really. Or if they have any lands which do anything particularly broken, we don't want them to, like Gavany Township or something like that. It's a nice little catch-all for land stuff, which we can't really get rid of at the time. I've got 1 copy of Vandal Blast against Artifacts decks. As you can tell, I haven't got many of each card. I've got it purely because we've got so much card draw that even 1 copy, chances are, will catch it. It's got, as I said, it's destroy target artifact you don't control. And it's got Overload, so you may cast a spell for its overload cost. If you do, change the text by replacing all instances of target with each. So I can, if it's an artifact deck, I can just destroy all of their artifacts for 5 mana, which is very good if we get to it. Against graveyards, I've got 2 copies of Relic of Progenitus, self-explanatory. You may have seen it in my other decks. Tap it, target player exiles a card from their graveyard, or I can just pay 1, get rid of Relic, and draw a card and exile all graveyards. As you've seen, we don't really have any graveyard tech in our deck, so it doesn't really affect us too much. We do have, 1 instant which can get a card from our graveyard, but overall, it's fine. Does the job nicely. I've got 2 copies of Negate just for control matchups. Self-explanatory, really. Counter target non-creature spell. The fun part of my deck, I decided, as well as just having circumstantial cards in the sideboard, I thought, because we play no creatures in the main deck, a lot of people are going to just assume we don't play creatures, so they're going to take out all of their creature removal, and I want to catch them kind of off guard, maybe in game 2 or 3. So I put in 3 copies of Young Pyromancer, so whenever I cast an instant or sorcery, which I've got a lot of, I can create a 1/1 red elemental creature token, and you know, I'm gonna hit it with all my card draw, and once it gets down and they can't remove it, this will just take over the game, and we can just swarm our opponents with 1/1 elemental creatures and quite likely surprise them. Even if let's say we lose turn 1, bring in Young Pyromancer turn 2, they've taken out all their removal, we win using creatures, and then the next turn I think, oh, they've still got creatures, I'll put back in my creature removal, and then in turn 3 we can take it all out again. It's basically a way of keeping their deck inefficient and giving them a lot of dead cards. I just really like the idea of doing that. I haven't done it in a sideboard yet. I like a sort of transitional sideboard, so I thought I'd try it out with this deck, so I thought it'd be quite fun. I've got 1 copy of Dragon's Claw. It's purely there against burn. Whenever a player casts a red spell, I gain 1 life. I'm playing a lot of red spells. Hopefully they'll be playing a lot of red spells with their burn. Self-explanatory. Very good card. So I've got 1 copy of Izzet Staticaster. It's a nice creature. It's got flash, haste, and when it deals when it enters the battlefield, I can tap it. I can deal 1 damage to target creature and each other creature with the same name as that creature. It's just very good against tokens decks, really, and it's also very good against a lot of other decks because there are a lot of creatures which just have 1 toughness, and we can, you know, hopefully 2 for 1 sometimes. It's a good card to have on our sideboard. It does have its moments where it really does shine. Plus, if they've taken out their creature removal, just bung it on the battlefield and just chip away 1 damage at a time. I've got 1 copy of Jace, Architect of Fort. It's kind of a budget planeswalker. Not many people run it now. There's the better Jace that's now legal and modern, but this one I think isn't getting enough love. It's still very good. It's just good in control matchups or some creature matchups. If we manage to wipe boards, just slam one of them down. We get a lot of card advantage out of it. We can slow our opponent's creatures down. It's just a nice card, and I just like the idea of having at least 1 planeswalker in the sideboard just as a catch-all. And then we've got 2 more creatures to go through. Niblix of Frost. It's got flying, prowess. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, which I will be doing, this creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. And whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, tap target creature and opponent controls. That creature doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. So this card here is just, it wasn't being played much in standard, never mind modern, but I've always liked the card, and I think 1 copy sat on a battlefield for too long, especially if they've got none of their creature removal in, it can just completely ruin their day. Very fun card, and I think it can do some work. And then 1 copy of Pia and Kiran Nalar. It's a legendary creature, 2/2, costs 4, and when it enters the battlefield, create 2 1/1 colourless Fopter artifact creature tokens with flying. So that's good, just having 2 jump blockers. But the main good point of this deck really is I can sacrifice an artifact and it deals 2 damage to any target if I pay 3. And because we have so many clues, this could be very, very useful, especially in grindy matchups. And yeah, I think it really will do some work. But that is the deck. I think it's a pretty cool looking deck. I'm not sure how good it's going to be. I'm sure there are better control decks out there with probably more efficient finishes. But I've just really wanted to make a modern deck based around Mechanized Production, especially with Ghirapur Aether Grid, Trail of Evidence. It can just be really fun, and we're going to draw so many clues. We'll keep churning through our deck until we find what we do need. I'm quite looking forward to playing the games in this one. I'm worried that we're going to have a lot of people quitting out because not many people on Magic Online like playing Control, so it may take me a while to actually get 5 full games, but we shall see how it goes. But if you do like the deck, please stick around and watch the games or the matches. I'm pretty certain they'll be quite fun. And yeah, like and subscribe if you do like it. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time. This is Alex. Bye.